Chapter 1 Twin Verses. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Suffering follows an evil thought as the wheels of a cart follow the oxen that draw it. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Joy follows a pure thought like a shadow that never leaves. He was angry with me, he attacked me, he defeated me, he robbed me. Those who dwell on such thoughts will never be free from hatred. He was angry with me, he attacked me, he defeated me, he robbed me. Those who do not dwell on such thoughts will surely become free from hatred. For hatred can never put an end to hatred, love alone can. This is an unalterable law. People forget that their lives will end soon. For those who remember, quarrels come to an end. As a strong wind blows down a weak tree, Mara the tempter overwhelms weak people who, eating too much and working too little, are caught in the frantic pursuit of pleasure. As the strongest wind cannot shake a mountain, Mara cannot shake those who are self-disciplined and full of faith. Those who put on the saffron robe without purifying the mind, who lack truthfulness and self-control, are not fit to wear the saffron robe. But those who have purified their minds, who are endowed with truth and self-control, are truly fit to wear the saffron robe. The deluded, imagining trivial things to be vital to life, follow their vain fancies and never attain the highest knowledge. But the wise, knowing what is trivial and what is vital, set their thoughts on the supreme goal and attain the highest knowledge. As rain seeps through an ill-thatched hut, passion will seep through an untrained mind. As rain cannot seep through a well-thatched hut, passion cannot seep through a well-trained mind. Those who are selfish suffer here and hereafter. They suffer in both worlds from the results of their own actions, but those who are selfless rejoice here and rejoice hereafter. They rejoice in both worlds from the results of their own actions. Those who are selfish suffer in this life and in the next. They suffer seeing the results of the evil they have done, and more suffering awaits them in the next life. But those who are selfless rejoice in this life and in the next. They rejoice seeing the good that they have done, and more joy awaits them in the next life. Those who recite many scriptures but fail to practice their teachings are like a cowherd counting another's cows. They do not share in the joys of the spiritual life. But those who know few scriptures yet practice their teachings, overcoming all lust, hatred, and delusion, live with a pure mind in the highest wisdom. They stand without external supports and share in the joys of the spiritual life. Chapter 2 Vigilance. Be vigilant and go beyond death. If you lack vigilance, you cannot escape death. Those who strive earnestly will go beyond death. Those who do not can never come to life. The wise understand this and rejoice in the wisdom of the noble ones. Meditating earnestly and striving for nirvana, they attain the highest joy and freedom. If you meditate earnestly, pure in mind and kind in deeds, leading a disciplined life in harmony with the Dharma, you will grow in glory. If you meditate earnestly, through spiritual disciplines, you can make an island for yourself that no flood can overwhelm. The immature lose their vigilance, but the wise guard it as their greatest treasure. Do not fall into ways of sloth and lust. Those who meditate earnestly attain the highest happiness. Overcoming sloth through earnestness, the wise climb beyond suffering to the peaks of wisdom. They look upon the suffering multitude as one from a mountain top looks on the plains below. Earnest among those who are indolent, awake among those who slumber, the wise advance like a racehorse, leaving others behind. It was through earnest effort that Indra became the lord of the gods. The earnest are always respected, the indolent never. The earnest spiritual aspirant, fearing sloth, advances like a fire, burning all fetters. Such seekers will never fall back. They are nearing nirvana. Chapter 3. Mind. As an archer aims an arrow, the wise aim their restless thoughts, hard to aim, hard to restrain. As a fish, hooked and left on the sand, thrashes about in agony, the mind, being trained in meditation, trembles all over, desperate to escape the hand of Mara. Hard it is to train the mind which goes where it likes and does what it wants, but a trained mind brings health and happiness. The wise can direct their thoughts, subtle and elusive, wherever they choose. A trained mind brings health and happiness. Those who can direct thoughts, which are unsubstantial and wander so aimlessly, are freed from the bonds of Mara. They are not wise whose thoughts are not steady and minds not serene, who do not know Dharma, the law of life. They are wise whose thoughts are steady and minds serene, unaffected by good and bad. They are awake and free from fear. Remember, this body is like a fragile clay pot. Make your mind a fortress and conquer Mara with the weapon of wisdom. Guard your conquest always. Remember that this body will soon lie in the earth without life, without value, useless as a burned log. More than those who hate you, more than all your enemies, an undisciplined mind does greater harm. More than your mother, more than your father, more than all your family, a well-disciplined mind does greater good. Chapter 4. Flowers. As a garland maker chooses the right flowers, choose the well-taught path of Dharma and go beyond the realms of death and of the gods. As a garland maker chooses the right flowers, those who choose the well-taught path of Dharma will go beyond the realms of death and of the gods. Remembering that this body is like froth, of the nature of a mirage, break the flower-tipped arrows of Mara. Never again will death touch you. As a flood sweeps away a slumbering village, death sweeps away those who spend their lives gathering flowers. Death sweeps them away while they are still gathering, caught in the pursuit of pleasure. But the wise live without injuring nature, as the bee drinks nectar without harming the flower. Do not give your attention to what others do or fail to do. Give it to what you do or fail to do. Like a lovely flower, full of colour but lacking in fragrance, are the words of those who do not practice what they preach. Like a lovely flower, full of colour and fragrance, are the words of those who practice what they preach. Many garlands can be made from a heap of flowers. Many good deeds can be done in this life. The scent of flowers or sandalwood cannot travel against the wind, but the fragrance of the good spreads everywhere. Neither sandalwood nor the Tagara flower, neither lotus nor jasmine can come near the fragrance of the good. Faint is the scent of sandalwood or the Tagara, but the fragrance of the good rises high to reach the gods. Mara can never come near those who are good, earnest, and enlightened. A true follower of the Buddha shines among blind mortals as the fragrant lotus growing in the garbage by the roadside brings joy to all who pass by. Chapter 5. The Immature. Long is the night to those who are awake, long is the road to those who are weary, long is the cycle of birth and death to those who know not the Dharma. If you find no one to support you on the spiritual path, walk alone. There is no companionship with the immature. They think these children are mine, this wealth is mine. They cannot even call themselves their own, much less their children or wealth. The immature who know they are immature have a little wisdom, but the immature who look on themselves as wise are utterly foolish. They cannot understand the Dharma even if they spend their whole life with the wise. How can the spoon know the taste of soup? If the mature spend even a short time with the wise, they will understand Dharma, just as the tongue knows the taste of soup. The immature are their own enemies, doing selfish deeds which will bring them sorrow. That deed is selfish which brings remorse and suffering in its wake, but good is that deed which brings no remorse, only happiness in its wake. Sweet are selfish deeds to the immature until they see the results. When they see the results, they suffer. Even if they fast month after month, eating with only the tip of a blade of grass, they are not worth the 16th part of one who truly understands Dharma. As fresh milk needs time to curdle, a selfish deed takes time to bring sorrow in its wake. Like fire smouldering under the ashes, slowly does it burn the immature. Even if they pick up a little knowledge, the immature misuse it and break their heads instead of benefiting from it. The immature go after false prestige, precedence of fellow monks, power in the monasteries, and praise from all. Listen, monks and householders, I can do this, I can do that, I am right, and you are wrong. Thus their pride and passion increase. Choose the path that leads to nirvana. Avoid the road to profit and pleasure. Remember this always, O disciples of the Buddha, and strive always for wisdom. Chapter 6. The Wise. If you see someone wise who can steer you away from the wrong path, follow that person as you would one who can reveal hidden treasures. Only good can come out of it. Let them admonish or instruct or restrain you from what is wrong. They will be loved by the good but disliked by the bad. Make friends with those who are good and true, not with those who are bad and false. To follow the Dharma revealed by the noble ones is to live in joy with a serene mind. As irrigators lead water where they want, as archers make their arrows straight, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their minds. As a solid rock cannot be moved by the wind, the wise are not shaken by praise or blame. When they listen to the words of the Dharma, their minds become calm and clear like the waters of a still lake. Good people keep on walking whatever happens. They do not speak vain words and are the same in good fortune and bad. If one desires neither children, nor wealth, nor powers, nor success by unfair means, know such a one to be good, wise, and virtuous. Few are those who reach the other shore. Most people keep running up and down this shore. But those who follow the Dharma, when it has been well taught, will reach the other shore, hard to reach, beyond the power of death. They leave darkness behind and follow the light. They give up home and leave pleasure behind. Calling nothing their own, they purify their hearts and rejoice. Well trained in the 7 fields of enlightenment, their senses disciplined and free from attachment, they live in freedom, full of light. Chapter 7. The Saint. They have completed their voyage, they have gone beyond sorrow. The fetters of life have fallen from them, and they live in full freedom. The thoughtful strive always, they have no fixed abode, but leave home like swans from their lake. Like the flight of birds in the sky, the path of the selfless is hard to follow. They have no possessions, but live on alms in a world of freedom. Like the flight of birds in the sky, their path is hard to follow. With their senses under control, temperate in eating, they know the meaning of freedom. Even the gods envy the saints, whose senses obey them like well-trained horses, and who are free from pride. Patient like the earth, they stand like a threshold. They are pure like a lake without mud, and free from the cycle of birth and death. Wisdom has stilled their minds, and their thoughts, words, and deeds are filled with peace. Freed from illusion and from personal ties, they have renounced the world of appearance to find reality. Thus they have reached the highest. They make holy wherever they dwell, in village or forest, on land or at sea. With their senses at peace and minds full of joy, they make the forests holy. Chapter 8. Thousands. Better than a speech of 1,000 vain words is one thoughtful word which brings peace to the mind. Better than a poem of 1,000 vain verses is one thoughtful line which brings peace to the mind. Better than 100 poems of vain stanzas is one word of the Dharma that brings peace to the mind. One who conquers himself is greater than another who conquers 1,000 times 1,000 men on the battlefield. Be victorious over yourself and not over others. When you attain victory over yourself, not even the gods can turn it into defeat. Better than performing 1,000 rituals month by month for 100 years is a moment's homage to one living in wisdom. Better than tending the sacrificial fire in the forest for 1,000 years is a moment's homage to one living in wisdom. Making gifts and offerings for a whole year to earn merit is not worth a quarter of the honor paid to the wise. To those who honor the wise and follow them, 4 gifts will come in increasing measure: health, happiness, beauty, and long life. Better to live in virtue and wisdom for one day than to live 100 years with an evil and undisciplined mind. Better to live in goodness and wisdom for one day than to lead an ignorant and undisciplined life for 100 years. Better to live in strength and wisdom for one day than to lead a weak and idle life for 100 years. Better to live in freedom and wisdom for one day than to lead a conditioned life of bondage for 100 years. One day's glimpse of the deathless state is better than 100 years of life without it. One day's glimpse of Dharma is better than 100 years of life without it. Chapter 9. Evil. Hasten to do good, refrain from evil. If you neglect the good, evil can enter your mind. If you do what is evil, do not repeat it or take pleasure in making it a habit. An evil habit will cause nothing but suffering. If you do what is good, keep repeating it and take pleasure in making it a habit. A good habit will cause nothing but joy. Evildoers may be happy as long as they do not reap what they have sown, but when they do, sorrow overcomes them. The good may suffer as long as they do not reap what they have sown, but when they do, joy overcomes them. Let no one think lightly of evil and say to himself, sorrow will not come to me. Little by little a person becomes evil, as a pot is filled by drops of water. Let no one think lightly of good and say to himself, joy will not come to me. Little by little a person becomes good, as a pot is filled by drops of water. As a rich merchant travelling alone avoids dangerous roads, as a lover of life avoids poison, let everyone avoid dangerous deeds. If you have no wound on your hand, you can touch poison without being harmed. No harm comes to those who do no harm. If you harm a pure and innocent person, you harm yourself, as dust thrown against the wind comes back to the thrower. Some are born again. Those caught in evil ways go to a state of intense suffering. Those who have done good go to a state of joy. But the pure in heart enter nirvana. Not in the sky, not in the ocean, not in mountain canyons is there a place anywhere in the world where a person can hide from his evil deeds. Not in the sky, not in the ocean, not in mountain canyons is there a place where one can hide from death. Chapter 10. Punishment. Everyone fears punishment. Everyone fears death just as you do. Therefore do not kill or cause to kill. Everyone fears punishment. Everyone loves life as you do. Therefore do not kill or cause to kill. If, hoping to be happy, you strike at others who also seek happiness, you will be happy neither here nor hereafter. If, hoping to be happy, you do not strike at others who are also seeking happiness, you will be happy here and hereafter. Speak quietly to everyone, and they too will be gentle in their speech. Harsh words hurt and come back to the speaker. If your mind is still like a broken gong, you have entered nirvana, leaving all quarrels behind you. As a cowherd with his staff drives cows to fresh fields, old age and death lead all creatures to new lives. The selfish, doing harm, do not know what is in store for them. They are burned as if by fire, by the results of their own deeds. If one harms the innocent, suffering will come in these 10 ways. They may suffer grief, infirmity, painful accident, serious illness, loss of mind, legal prosecution, fearful accusation, family bereavement, or financial loss. Or their house may burn down, and after death they may be thrown into the fire of suffering. Going about with matted hair, without food or bath, sleeping on the ground smeared with dust, or sitting motionless, no amount of penance can help a person whose mind is not purified. But those whose mind is serene and chaste, whose senses are controlled, and whose life is non-violent, these are true Brahmins, true monks, even if they wear fine clothes. As a well-trained horse needs no whip, a well-trained mind needs no prodding from the world to be good. Be like a well-trained horse, swift and spirited, and go beyond sorrow through faith, meditation, and energetic practice of the Dharma. As irrigators guide water to their fields, as archers aim arrows, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their lives. Chapter 11. Age. Why is there laughter? Why merriment when this world is on fire? When you are living in darkness, why don't you look for light? This body is a painted image subject to disease, decay, and death, held together by thoughts that come and go. What joy can there be for those who see that their white bones will be cast away like gourds in the autumn? Around the bones is built a house, plastered with flesh and blood, in which dwell pride and pretense, old age and death. Even the chariot of a king loses its glitter in the course of time. So too the body loses its health and strength, but goodness does not grow old with the passage of time. A man who does not learn from life grows old like an ox. His body grows, but not his wisdom. I have gone through many rounds of birth and death, looking in vain for the builder of this body. Heavy indeed is birth and death again and again. But now I have seen you, house builder. You shall not build this house again. Its beams are broken, its dome is shattered, self-will is extinguished, nirvana is attained. Those who have not practiced spiritual disciplines in their youth pine away like old cranes in a lake without fish. Like worn-out bows they lie in old age, sighing over the past. Chapter 12. Self. If you hold yourself dear, guard yourself diligently. Keep vigil during one of the 3 watches of the night. Learn what is right, then teach others as the wise do. Before trying to guide others, be your own guide first. It is hard to learn to guide oneself. Your own self is your master. Who else could be? With yourself well controlled, you gain a master very hard to find. The evil done by the selfish crushes them as a diamond breaks a hard gem. As a vine overpowers a tree, evil overpowers those who do evil, trapping them in a situation that only their enemies would wish them to be in. Evil deeds which harm the doer are easy to do. Good deeds are not so easy. Foolish people who scoff at the teachings of the wise, the noble, and the good, following false doctrines, bring about their own downfall like the Kataka tree, which dies after bearing fruit. By oneself is evil done, by oneself one is injured. Do not do evil and suffering will not come. Everyone has the choice to be pure or impure. No one can purify another. Don't neglect your own duty for another, however great. Know your own duty and perform it. Chapter 13. The World. Don't follow wrong laws. Don't be thoughtless. Don't believe false doctrines. Don't follow the way of the world. Wake up. Don't be lazy. Follow the right path. Avoid the wrong. You will be happy here as well as hereafter. Look on the world as a bubble. Look on it as a mirage. Then the king of death cannot even see you. Come, look at this world. Is it not like a painted royal chariot? The wise see through it, but not the immature. When those who are foolish become wise, they give light to the world like the full moon breaking through the clouds. When their good deeds overcome the bad, they give light to the world like the moon breaking free from behind the clouds. In this dark world few can see. Like birds that free themselves from the net, only a few find their way to heaven. Swans fly on the path of the sun by their wonderful power. The wise rise above the world after conquering Mara and his train. He who transgresses the central law of life, who speaks falsely or scoffs at the life to come, is capable of any evil. Misers do not go to the world of the gods. They do not want to give. The wise are generous and go to a happier world. Better than ruling this world, better than attaining the realm of the gods, better than being lord of all the worlds is one step taken on the path to Nirvana. Chapter 14. The Awakened One. He is the conqueror who can never be conquered, into whose conquest no other can ever enter. By what track can you reach him, the Buddha, the Awakened One, free of all conditioning? How can you describe him in human language, the Buddha, the Awakened One, free from the net of desires and the pollution of passions, free from all conditioning? Even the gods emulate those who are awakened. Established in meditation, they live in freedom, at peace. It is hard to obtain human birth, harder to live like a human being, harder still to understand the Dharma, but hardest of all to attain Nirvana. Avoid all evil, cultivate the good, purify your mind. This sums up the teaching of the Buddhas. Cultivate the patience that endures and attain Nirvana, the highest goal of life. Do not oppress others or cause them pain. That is not the way of the spiritual aspirant. Do not find fault with others. Do not injure others, but live in accordance with the Dharma. Be moderate in eating and sleeping, and meditate on the highest. This sums up the teaching of the Buddhas. Even a shower of gold cannot quench the passions. They are wise who know that passions are passing and bring pain in their wake. Even celestial pleasures cannot quench the passions. They are true followers of the Buddha who rejoice in the conquest of desires. Driven by fear, people run for security to mountains and forests, to sacred spots and shrines. But none of these can be a safe refuge because they cannot free the mind from fear. Take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and you will grasp the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path that takes you beyond suffering. That is your best refuge, your only refuge. When you reach it, all sorrow falls away. One like the Buddha is hard to find. Such a one is not born everywhere. Where those established in wisdom are born, the community flourishes. Blessed is the birth of the Buddha, blessed is the teaching of the Dharma, blessed is the Sangha, where all live in harmony. Blessed beyond measure are they who pay homage to those worthy of homage, to the Buddha and his disciples who have gone beyond evil, shed all fear, and crossed the river of sorrow to the other shore. Chapter 15. Joy. Let us live in joy, never hating those who hate us. Let us live in freedom, without hatred even among those who hate. Let us live in joy, never falling sick like those who are sick. Let us live in freedom, without disease even among those who are ill. Let us live in joy, never attached among those who are selfishly attached. Let us live in freedom, even among those who are bound by selfish attachments. Let us live in joy, never hoarding things among those who hoard. Let us live in growing joy, like the bright gods. Conquest breeds hatred, for the conquered live in sorrow. Let us be neither conqueror nor conquered, and live in peace and joy. There is no fire like lust, no sickness like hatred, no sorrow like separateness, no joy like peace. No disease is worse than greed, no suffering worse than selfish passion. Know this and seek nirvana as the highest joy. Health is the best gift, contentment the best wealth, trust the best kinsman, nirvana the greatest joy. Drink the nectar of the Dharma in the depths of meditation and become free from fear and sin. It is good to meet the wise, even better to live with them, but avoid the company of the immature if you want joy. Keeping company with the immature is like going on a long journey with an enemy. The company of the wise is joyful, like reunion with one's family. Therefore live among the wise who are understanding, patient, responsible and noble. Keep their company as the moon moves among the stars. Chapter 16. Pleasure. Don't run after pleasure and neglect the practice of meditation. If you forget the goal of life and get caught in the pleasures of the world, you will come to envy those who put meditation first. Not seeing what is pleasant brings pain. Seeing what is unpleasant brings pain. Therefore, go beyond both pleasure and pain. Don't get selfishly attached to anything, for trying to hold on to it will bring you pain. When you have neither likes nor dislikes, you will be free. Selfish attachment brings suffering. Selfish attachment brings fear. Be detached and you will be free from suffering and fear. Selfish bonds cause grief. Selfish bonds cause fear. Be unselfish and you will be free from grief and fear. Selfish enjoyments lead to frustration. Selfish enjoyments lead to fear. Be unselfish and you will be free from frustration and fear. Selfish desires give rise to anxiety. Selfish desires give rise to fear. Be unselfish and you will be free from anxiety and fear. Craving brings pain. Craving brings fear. Don't yield to cravings and you will be free from pain and fear. Those who have character and discrimination, who are honest and good and follow the Dharma with devotion, win the respect of all the world. If you long to know what is hard to know and can resist the temptations of the world, you will cross the river of life. As your family and friends receive you with joy when you return from a long journey, so will your good deeds receive you when you go from this life to the next, where they will be waiting for you with joy like your kinsmen. Chapter 17. Anger. Give up anger, give up pride and free yourself from worldly bondage. No sorrow can befall those who never try to possess people and things as their own. Those who hold back rising anger like a rolling chariot are real charioteers, others merely hold the reins. Conquer anger through gentleness, unkindness through kindness, greed through generosity, and falsehood by truth. Be truthful, do not lead to anger. Give freely, even if you have but little. The gods will bless you. Injuring no one, self-controlled, the wise enter the state of peace beyond all sorrow. Those who are vigilant, who train their minds day and night and strive continually for nirvana, enter the state of peace beyond all selfish passions. There is an old saying, people will blame you if you say too much. They will blame you if you say too little. They will blame you if you say just enough. No one in this world escapes blame. There never was and never will be anyone who receives all praise or all blame. But who can blame those who are pure, wise, good, and meditative? They shine like a coin of pure gold. Even the gods praise them, even Brahma, the creator. Use your body for doing good, not for harm. Train it to follow the Dharma. Use your tongue for doing good, not for harm. Train it to speak kindly. Use your mind for doing good, not for harm. Train your mind in love. The wise are disciplined in body, speech, and mind. They are well controlled indeed. Chapter 18. Impurity. You are like a withered leaf, waiting for the messenger of death. You are about to go on a long journey, but you are so unprepared. Light the lamp within, strive hard to attain wisdom, become pure and innocent, and live in the world of light. Your life has come to an end, and you are in the presence of death. There is no place to rest on this journey, and you are so unprepared. Light the lamp within, strive hard to attain wisdom, become pure and innocent, and you will be free from birth and death. Make your mind pure as a silversmith blows away the impurities of silver, little by little, instant by instant. As rust consumes the iron which breeds it, evil deeds consume those who do them. The mantram is weak when not repeated. A house falls into ruin when not repaired. The body loses health when it is not exercised. The watchman fails when vigilance is lost. Lack of modesty is a drawback in women. Lack of generosity taints those who give. Selfish deeds are without merit here and hereafter, but there is no impurity greater than ignorance. Remove that through wisdom and you will be pure. Life seems easy for one without shame, no better than a crow, a mischief maker, who is insolent and dissolute. Life is hard for one who is humble, gentle and detached, who tries to live in purity. They dig their own graves who'll kill, lie, get drunk, or covet the wealth or spouse of another. Those who drink to intoxication are digging up their own roots. Any indiscipline brings evil in its wake. Know this and do not let greed and vice bring you lingering pain. Some give out of faith, others out of friendship. Do not envy others for the gifts they receive, or you will have no peace of mind by day or night. Those who have destroyed the roots of jealousy have peace of mind always. There is no fire like lust, no jailer like hate, no snare like infatuation, no torrent like greed. It is easy to see the faults of others. We winnow them like chaff. It is hard to see our own. We hide them as a gambler hides a losing draw. But when one keeps dwelling on the faults of others, his own compulsions grow worse, making it harder to overcome them. There is no path in the sky, there is no refuge in the world for those driven by their desires. But the disciples of the Buddha live in freedom. There is no path in the sky, there is no refuge in the world for those driven by their desires. All is change in the world. but the disciples of the Buddha are never shaken. Chapter 19. Established in Dharma. They are not following Dharma who resort to violence to achieve their purpose, but those who lead others through non-violent means, knowing right and wrong, may be called guardians of the Dharma. One who is not wise because he talks a good deal, they are wise who are patient and free from hate and fear. Dharma is not upheld by talking about it. Dharma is upheld by living in harmony with it, even if one is not learned. Grey hair does not make an elder. One can grow old and still be immature. A true elder is truthful, virtuous, gentle, self-controlled, and pure in mind. Neither pleasant words nor a pretty face can make beautiful a person who is jealous, selfish, or deceitful. Only those who have uprooted such impurities from the mind are fit to be called beautiful. Shaving one's head cannot make a monk of one who is undisciplined, untruthful, and driven by selfish desires. He is a real monk who has extinguished all selfish desires, large and small. Begging alms does not make a bhikshu. One must follow the Dharma completely. He is a true bhikshu who is chaste and beyond the reach of good and evil, who passes through the world with detachment. Observing silence cannot make a sage of one who is ignorant and immature. He is wise who, holding the scales, chooses the good and avoids the bad. One is not noble who injures living creatures. They are noble who hurt no one. Chapter 20. The Path. Of paths the eightfold is the best. Of truths the noble four are best. Of mental states detachment is the best. Of human beings the illumined one is best. This is the path. There is no other that leads to the purification of the mind. Follow this path and conquer Mara. This path will lead to the end of suffering. This path is the path I made known after the arrows of sorrow fell away. All the effort must be made by you. Buddhas only show the way. Follow this path and practice meditation. Go beyond the power of Mara. All created things are transitory. Those who realize this are freed from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. All created beings are involved in sorrow. Those who realize this are freed from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. All states are without self. Those who realize this are freed from suffering. This is the path that leads to pure wisdom. Now is the time to wake up, when you are young and strong. Those who wait and waver with weak will and a divided mind will never find the way to pure wisdom. Guard your thoughts, words, and deeds. These three disciplines will speed you along the path to pure wisdom. Meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Know well what leads you forward and what holds you back, and choose the path that leads to wisdom. Cut down the whole forest of selfish desires, not just one tree only. Cut down the whole forest and you will be on your way to liberation. If there is any trace of lust in your mind, you are bound to life like a suckling calf to its mother. Pull out every selfish desire as you would an autumn lotus with your hand. Follow the path to nirvana with a guide who knows the way. I will make this my winter home, have another house for the monsoon, and dwell in a third during the summer. Lost in such fancies, one forgets his final destination. Death comes and carries off a man absorbed in his family and possessions as the monsoon flood sweeps away a sleeping village. Neither children nor parents can rescue one whom death has seized. Remember this and follow without delay the path that leads to nirvana. Chapter 21. Varied Verses. If one who enjoys a lesser happiness beholds a greater one, let him leave aside the lesser to gain the greater. Don't try to build your happiness on the unhappiness of others. You will be enmeshed in a net of hatred. Do not fail to do what ought to be done, and do not do what ought not to be done. Otherwise your burden of suffering will grow heavier. Those who meditate and keep their senses under control never fail to do what ought to be done, and never do what ought not to be done. Their suffering will come to an end. Kill mother lust and father self-will. Kill the kings of carnal passions, and you will be freed from sin. The true Brahmin has killed mother lust and father self-will. He has killed the kings of carnal passions and the ego that obstructs him on the path. Such a one is freed from sin. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, with their thoughts focused on the Buddha day and night. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, absorbed in the Dharma day and night. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, with their thoughts focused on the Sangha day and night. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, with their thoughts focused on sense training day and night. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, rejoicing in compassion day and night. The disciples of Gautama are wide awake and vigilant, rejoicing in meditation day and night. It is hard to leave the world and hard to live in it. Painful to live with the worldly and painful to be a wanderer. Reach the goal, you will wander and suffer no more. Those who are good and pure in conduct are honored wherever they go. The good shine like the Himalayas, whose peaks glisten above the rest of the world, even when seen from a distance. Others pass unseen, like an arrow shot at night. Sitting alone, sleeping alone, going about alone, vanquish the ego by yourself alone. Abiding joy will be yours when all selfish desires end. Chapter 22. The Downward Course. One who says it is not true, one who denies what he has done, both choose the downward course. After death, these two become partners in falsehood. Those who put on the saffron robe but remain ill-mannered and undisciplined are dragged down by their evil deeds. It is better for an undisciplined monk to swallow a red-hot ball of iron than to live on the charity of the devout. Adultery leads to loss of merit, loss of sleep, condemnation, and increasing suffering. On this downward course, what pleasure can there be for the frightened lying in the arms of the frightened, both going in fear of punishment? Therefore do not commit adultery. As a blade of kusha grass can cut the finger when it is wrongly held, asceticism practiced without discrimination can send one on the downward course. An act performed carelessly, a vow not kept, a code of chastity not strictly observed, these things bring a little reward. If anything is worth doing, do it with all your heart. A half-hearted ascetic covers himself with more and more dust. Refrain from evil deeds which cause suffering later. Perform good deeds which can cause no suffering. Guard yourself well, both within and without, like a well-defended fort. Don't waste a moment, for wasted moments send you on the downward course. Those who are ashamed of deeds they should not be ashamed of, and not ashamed of deeds they should be ashamed of, follow false doctrines on the downward course. Those who fear what they ought not to fear, and do not fear what they ought to fear, follow false doctrines on the downward course. Those who see wrong where there is none, and do not see wrong where there is, follow false doctrines on the downward course. But those who see wrong where there is wrong, and see no wrong where there is none, follow true doctrines on the upward course. Chapter 23. The Elephant. Patiently I shall bear harsh words as the elephant bears arrows on the battlefield. People are often inconsiderate. Only a trained elephant goes to the battlefield. Only a trained elephant carries the king. Best among men are those who have trained the mind to endure harsh words patiently. Mules are good animals when trained. Even better are well-trained Sind horses and great elephants. Best among men is one with a well-trained mind. No animal can take you to nirvana. Only a well-trained mind can lead you to this untrodden land. The elephant Dhanapalaka in heat will not eat at all when he is bound. He pines for his mate in the elephant grove. Eating too much, sleeping too much, like an overfed hog, those too lazy to exert effort are born again and again. Long ago my mind used to wander as it liked and do what it wanted. Now I can rule my mind as the mahout controls the elephant with his hooked staff. Be vigilant, guard your mind against negative thoughts. Pull yourself out of bad ways and an elephant raises itself out of the mud. If you find a friend who is good, wise and loving, walk with him all the way and overcome all dangers. If you cannot find a friend who is good, wise and loving, walk alone, like a king who has renounced his kingdom or an elephant roaming at will in the forest. It is better to be alone than to live with the immature. Be contented and walk alone like an elephant roaming in the forest. Turn away from evil. It is good to have friends when friendship is mutual. Good deeds are friends at the time of death, but best of all is going beyond sorrow. It is good to be a mother, good to be a father, good to be one who follows the Dharma, but best of all is to be an illumined sage. It is good to live in virtue, good to have faith, good to attain the highest wisdom, good to be pure in heart and mind. Joy will be yours always. Chapter 24. Thirst. The compulsive urges of the thoughtless grow like a creeper. They jump like a monkey from one life to another, looking for fruit in the forest. When these urges drive us, sorrow spreads like wild grass. Conquer these fierce cravings and sorrow will fall away from your life like drops of water from a lotus leaf. Therefore I say, dig up craving, root and all, as you would uproot banana grass. If you don't want Mara to crush you as the stream crushes reeds on its banks. As a tree, though cut down, recovers and grows if its roots are not destroyed, suffering will come to you more and more if these compulsive urges are not extinguished. Wherever the 36 streams flow from the mind towards pleasure, the current will sweep that unfortunate person away. The currents flow everywhere. Creepers of passion grow everywhere. Whenever you see one growing in your mind, uproot it with wisdom. All human beings are subject to attachment and thirst for pleasure. Hankering after these, they are caught in the cycle of birth and death. Driven by this thirst, they run about frightened like a haunted hare, suffering more and more. Driven by this thirst, they run about frightened like a haunted hare, overcome this thirst and be free. Some, if they manage to come out of one forest of cravings, are driven into another. Though free, they run into bondage again. Fetters of wood, rope, or even iron, say the wise, are not as strong as selfish attachment to wealth and family. Such fetters drag us down and are hard to break. Break them by overcoming selfish desires and turn from the world of sensory pleasure without a backward glance. Like a spider caught in its own web is a person driven by fierce cravings. Break out of the web and turn away from the world of sensory pleasure and sorrow. If you want to reach the other shore of existence, give up what is before, behind, and in between. Set your mind free and go beyond birth and death. If you want to reach the other shore, Don't let doubts, passions, and cravings strengthen your fetters. Meditate deeply, discriminate between the pleasant and the permanent, and break the fetters of Mara. Those who are free from fear, thirst, and sin have removed all the thorns from their life. This body is their last. They are supremely wise who are free from compulsive urges and attachment, and who understand what words really stand for. This body is their last. I have conquered myself and live in purity. I know all. I have left everything behind and live in freedom. Having taught myself, to whom shall I point as teacher? There is no gift better than the gift of the Dharma, no gift more sweet, no gift more joyful. It puts an end to cravings and the sorrow they bring. Wealth harms the greedy, but not those who seek nirvana. Of little understanding, the greedy harm themselves and those around them. Greed ruins the mind as weeds ruin fields. Therefore honor those who are free from greed. Lust ruins the mind as weeds ruin fields. Therefore honor those who are free from lust. Hatred ruins the mind as weeds ruin fields. Therefore honor those who are free from hatred. Selfish desires ruin the mind as weeds ruin fields. Therefore honor those who are free from selfish desire. Chapter 25. The Bhikshu. Train your eyes and ears, train your nose and tongue. Their senses are good friends when they are trained. Train your body in deeds, train your tongue in words, train your mind in thoughts. This training will take you beyond sorrow. He is a true bhikshu who has trained his hands, feet, and speech to serve others. He meditates deeply, is at peace with himself, and lives in joy. He is a true bhikshu who keeps repeating his mantram, lives simply, and explains the Dharma in sweet words. He is a true bhikshu who follows the Dharma, meditates on the Dharma, rejoices in the Dharma, and therefore never falls away from the Dharma. He is a bhikshu who is content with what he receives and is never jealous of others. Those who are jealous cannot do well in meditation. Even the gods praise the bhikshu who is contented and lives a pure life of selfless service. Free from the desire to possess people and things, he does not grieve over what is not. With friendship toward all and faith in the Buddha's teachings, he will reach the holy state where all is peace. Bhikshu, empty your boat, it will go faster. Cast out greed and hatred and reach nirvana. Overcome the 5 obstacles, rise above the 5 selfish attachments, and you will cross the river of life. Meditate, bhikshu, meditate. Do not run after sense pleasures. Do not swallow a red-hot iron ball and then cry, I am in great pain. There can be no meditation for those who are not wise, and no wisdom for those who do not meditate. Growing in wisdom through meditation, you will surely be close to nirvana. When a bhikshu stills his mind, he enters an empty house. His heart is full of the divine joy of the Dharma. Understanding the rise and fall of the elements that make up the body, he gains the joy of immortality. Learn to be wise, O bhikshu. Train your senses. Be contented. Follow the teachings of the Dharma and keep pure and noble friends. Be a friend of all. Perform your duties well. Then, with your joy ever growing, you will put an end to sorrow. As the Vasaka plant sheds its faded flowers, O bhikshu, shed all greed and hatred. He is a bhikshu who is calm in thought, word, and deed, and has turned his back upon the allurements of the world. Raise yourself by your own efforts, O bhikshu. Be your own critic. Thus self-reliant and vigilant you will live in joy. Be your own master and protector. Train your mind as a merchant trains his horse. Full of peace and joy is the bhikshu who follows the Dharma and reaches the other shore beyond the flux of mortal life. Full of light is the young bhikshu who follows the Dharma. He lights up the world as the moon lights a cloudless sky. Chapter 26. The Brahmin. Cross the river bravely, conquer all your passions, go beyond the world of fragments and know the deathless ground of life. Cross the river bravely, conquer all your passions, go beyond your likes and dislikes and all fetters will fall away. Who is a true Brahmin? That one I call a Brahmin who has neither likes nor dislikes and is free from the chains of fear. Who is a true Brahmin? That one I call a Brahmin who has trained the mind to be still and reached the supreme goal of life. The sun shines in the day, the moon shines in the night, the warrior shines in battle, the Brahmin in meditation, but day and night the Buddha shines in radiance of love for all. That one I call a Brahmin who has shed all evil. I'll call that one a recluse whose mind is serene, a wanderer whose heart is pure. That one I call a Brahmin who is never angry, never causes harm to others, even when harmed by them. That one I call a Brahmin who clings not to pleasure. Do not cause sorrow to others. No more sorrow will come to you. That one I call a Brahmin who does not hurt others with unkind acts, words or thoughts. Both body and mind obey him. That one I call a Brahmin who walks in the footsteps of the Buddha. Light your torch from the fire of his sacrifice. It is not matted hair nor birth that makes a Brahmin, but truth and the love for all life with which one's heart is full. What use is matted hair? What use is deerskin on which to sit for meditation if your mind still seethes with lust? Saffron robe and outward show do not make a Brahmin, but training of the mind and senses through practice of meditation. Neither riches nor high caste makes a Brahmin. Free yourself from selfish desires and you will become a Brahmin. The Brahmin has thrown off all chains and trembles not in fear. No selfish bonds can ensnare such a one. No impure thought pollute the mind. That one I call a Brahmin who has cut through the strap and thong and chain of karma. Such a one has got up from sleep fully awake. That one I call a Brahmin who fears neither prison nor death. Such a one has the power of love no army can defeat. That one I call a Brahmin who is never angry, never goes astray from the path, who is pure and self-controlled. This body is the last. That one I call a Brahmin who clings not to pleasure, no more than water to a lotus leaf or mustard seed to the tip of a needle. For such a one no more sorrow will come, no more burden will fall. That one I call a Brahmin whose wisdom is profound and whose understanding deep, who by following the right path and avoiding the wrong has reached the highest goal. That one I call a Brahmin whose wants are few, who is detached from householders and homeless mendicants alike. That one I call a Brahmin who has put aside weapons and renounced violence towards all creatures. Such a one neither kills nor helps others to kill. That one I call a Brahmin who is never hostile to those who are hostile towards him, who is detached among those who are selfish and at peace among those at war. That one I call a Brahmin from whom passion and hatred, arrogance and deceit have fallen away like mustard seed from the point of a needle. That one I call a Brahmin who is ever true, ever kind. Such a one never asks what life can give, only, what can I give life? That one I call a Brahmin who has found his heaven, free from every selfish desire, free from every impurity, wanting nothing at all, doubting nothing at all, master of both body and mind. Such a one has gone beyond time and death. That one I call a Brahmin who has gone beyond good and evil and is free from sorrow, passion and impurity. That one I call a Brahmin who has risen above the duality of this world, free from sorrow and free from sin. Such a one shines like the full moon with no cloud in the sky. That one I call a Brahmin who has crossed the river difficult and dangerous to cross, and safely reached the other shore. That one I call a Brahmin who has turned his back upon himself. Homeless, such a one is ever at home. Egoless, he is ever full. Self-will has left his mind, it will never return. Sorrow has left his life, it will never return. That one I call a Brahmin who has overcome the urge to possess even heavenly things and is free from all selfish attachments. That one I call a Brahmin who is free from bondage to human beings and to nature alike, the hero who has conquered the world. That one I call a Brahmin who is free from I, me and mine, who knows the rise and fall of life. Such a one is awake and will not fall asleep again. That one I call a Brahmin whose way no one can know. Such a one lives free from past and future, free from decay and death. Possessing nothing, desiring nothing for their own pleasure, their own profit, they have become a force for good, working for the freedom of all. That one I call a Brahmin who is fearless, heroic, unshakable, a great sage who has conquered death and attained life's goal. Brahmins have reached the end of the way. They have crossed the river of life. All that they had to do is done. They have become one with all life.